everyone, and welcome to Blind Buys, a podcast where we watch and discuss movies we've bought sight unseen. I'm Jesse, and with me, as always, is my collector in crime, Josh.
Hey, thanks for joining us for our 8th episode where we'll be covering not one, but two Japanese experimental punk metal nightmares, Tetsuo the Iron Man and Tetsuo II Body Hammer. So that'll be later on in the bottom of the hour. First, Jesse, what you been up to lately? It's been a bit since we last spoke.
Yeah, and there was a notable passing in the world of video, home video, and video distribution within the last couple weeks. Austin Furst, which is a name that might not be well known. He was he wasn't a performer. He wasn't a director, but one of among the many things that he did, he had a sort of a long career in the corporate space. But one of the many ventures he was involved in was the founding of Vestron Video in the early 80s. Which is one of the pioneering names in home video distribution. They just licensed lots of titles back before, Warner Brothers or any of the other studios had their own production and distribution operation. These smaller companies would find titles to license from these studios and would put them out on home video, and would also sometimes make their own, but also license these really, really small, strange B-movies. And Vestron Video was really one of the big early names in this space and kind of paved the way for a lot of what we talk about now. I mean, I don't know if they weren't, VHS tapes didn't have special features, but they were the way to find kind of weird little movies that you might have never played anywhere near your house. So he passed away at the ripe old age of 82. And within the last couple weeks, and Scarecrow put up a really great. They always have a running in memoriam sections for notable actors and directors and other people who have passed recently, and they put up a big Vestron Video inspired shelf that I just had to take a look at. And this is just the kind of stuff that I really kind of live for at this point, these forgotten movies. And a lot of the stuff they had on the shelf was on VHS. It may have received a DVD release, but a lot of these are still only available on VHS. So I'm always excited when they have VHS out to view. The tapes still have the outrageous artwork that catches your eye. So my last stack of rentals from Scarecrow was 4 VHS tapes from this Vestron shelf. Some better than others, but all were a lot of fun to watch. There's this one called Arthur the King, or Merlin and the Sword, as it was called, as the title on the box was. And this was an Arthurian legend epic picture from 1985 with Malcolm McDowell as King Arthur, Candice Bergen as Morgan Le Fay. Yes, and Liam Neeson playing this sort of guttural barbarian character. Back when he was he kind of did a lot of, before he became a known quantity, he starred in a number of B-movie sword and sorcery type things, and this was one of them.
Yeah.
And Candice Bergen just has the most outrageous hairstyle as Morgan Le Fay, and she lives in a huge bird nest. That was probably my favorite watch of the bunch, because this was just a couple of years after Excalibur came out. So, and I'd never heard of this movie, and I think only less than 100 people on Letterboxd had reviewed it. So I had to check it out based on the box cover alone. So that was fun. Definitely a fun watch, and a few others. What else did I get? Enemy Territory, which actually that was a Bat and Spider watch. They covered Enemy Territory, and I got that on VHS. And it looked pretty good. The tape looked pretty good. That's sort of like this exploitation film. These guys who are trapped inside of a housing project in New York City trying to get out. One's an insurance salesman. Lots of crazy things ensue. Another one that I'd never heard of any of these, Space Rage. It was a space western of sorts starring Richard Farnsworth from 1985, where he is on this it's sort of like Australia prison colony, but in space. Is sort of the setup of this place. And it's really just an excuse to have a lot of dune buggy chases out in the Mojave Desert, which was easily the best part of the movie. It was actually pretty bad, but watching the dune buggies was fun. So yeah, I've been kind of reveling in VHS tapes recently. So that's always a good time.
That's awesome. So I looked up a list of Vestron releases on Letterboxd and filtered it to what I had seen. And a couple of these I had seen, on VHS, but I didn't realize were released by Vestron. The most notable one that I'm seeing here is a movie called The Private Eyes, starring Tim Conway and Don Knotts. Have you ever seen this movie?
I have not, but that's, I mean, we've talked about Tim Conway and Don Knotts before, so I'm automatically interested.
Yeah, this is a movie that my grandmother had on VHS, and I was certainly too young to watch this, I think, when I did. But I've seen this movie probably 10 times. I mean, it's got the thing that you mentioned with the Vestron VHS tapes where it's like the cover art is just wacky and out there, but it's really enticing. And Tim Conway and Don Knotts just played kind of like a bumbling Sherlock and Watson type, and they are tasked with coming to a mansion to solve a murder mystery. And I watched this before I had ever seen Clue, and so I think I was expecting Clue to be a lot more like this movie than it was when I first saw that. So this is it's funny that you've mentioned all this Vestron stuff because I have absolutely seen this and a couple of others on this list on VHS without realizing it was from Vestron.
Yeah, and well, the name lives on because I don't know who publishes them now, because I don't think Vestron doesn't. It might be Lionsgate. It might be some kind of Lionsgate sub, but there is a Vestron collector's series of Blu-rays that's current.
Mm-hmm.
That every now and then stuff comes out. Like they've got Beyond Reanimator, Blue Steel, Chopping Mall, and lots of other like Lair of the White Worm, which is really good.
Yeah.
Little Monsters. So the name is still out there. But it was fun to sort of pay homage to this sort of hallowed name in video releasing. What
Yeah.
about you? What have you been watching?
Not a lot of watches for me over the last couple of weeks, mainly because we went on a little bit of a trip here this past weekend with my family. I was in a wedding, so we took the baby and hit the road. But I did get to a couple of movies in the Female Prisoner Scorpion series of films, which I know you've seen. Several people over in the 70 millimeter Discord have mentioned those of late, especially because the actress Maiko Kaiji is kind of doing a tour right now, bringing around these films to the U.S.
Very, very jealous. Yeah, in Chicago and New York, she's been. I don't think I just googled. I don't think she's coming to Seattle. Really
Ah,
wish she
man.
was. That would be amazing. But
Yeah. But for anyone not familiar with this series, it's a series of Japanese exploitation films from the 70s. And there are four of them in the main series that star Maiko Kaji. She was best known for being in Lady Snowblood, the inspiration for Tarantino's Kill Bill films. But these are basically women in prison films, and the main character is Prisoner 701. Her nickname is the Scorpion, and she's basically wrongly imprisoned in the original film. She is dating a cop, and he sends her kind of on an undercover mission and then betrays her. And so she gets thrown in prison, and it's a lot of, prison torture, mistreatment, that kind of thing. It is an exploitation film, but also just like some really great action sequences, and they're all very all the films are very impressionistic, and there's like an art house feel to them, and they're
absolutely.
super colorful and a lot of fun to watch. And there's the Song of Vengeance, I think is what it's called, that kind of recurs throughout these movies, which if you've seen Kill Bill, I think Volume 2, you've definitely heard the tune before. Yeah, he snatched it straight from this series. So yeah, I got to watch the first three of those kind of over maybe a 5-day period or so. And yeah, I was just really enthralled with them and enjoyed them a lot. They're definitely tough watches, but it's the character of the Scorpion that really sold me on like continuing through the series, because she's just like really badass and gets her vengeance in many ways, and it's just really fun to watch.
Yeah, I need to jump back in. Did you watch on the Arrow box, the Arrow Blu-rays?
I didn't. I watched on Tubi, I think.
Okay.
I had to rent the second one. The second one is called Jailhouse 41, and that one's for some reason not available on streaming, but the other ones are on Tubi.
Nice. I have the box, and that's how I watched the first one. And that it's always in the standard edition is always in the different Arrow sales, so that'll be a good, and it's pretty reasonably priced whenever it
Hmm.
comes up. So that's a good pickup for anyone who's shopping the sales. For sure.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first one. I need to jump back in and watch at least the second one, because that seems to be the one that people talk about as the standout of the series.
Yeah, it's interesting. The first one is the one that I probably enjoyed the most, just because I wasn't expecting like some of the stylistic flourishes that come out of it, and also having seen a lot of Tarantino's works, just seeing kind of like where he stole certain things, and the first one has a lot of that, and so I was like, oh, this is like definitely something I've seen before, but it's actually kind of maybe done a little bit better here. The second one is also really great. It's just a lot more grim, and I think even more surreal than the first one, if that's even possible. So it's definitely worth the watch, in my opinion. The third one's a little iffy, and I haven't gotten to the fourth one yet, but I definitely intend to.
Surreal Japanese movies, you say? Hmm.
Yeah, it couldn't be another one out there that we could
Yeah.
discuss.
Who knows? Who knows?
Oh, I also watched my first 2026 release of the year. It's April, and this is the first one I've seen all year. I've been busy with other things.
Yeah, you have good. You get a pass this year for sure.
Yeah, 2027 though, no excuses. Um, but the first one I watched was Pizza Movie on Hulu. This is a movie directed by a comedy group Britannic. They're a sketch comedy duo, and this is a stoner comedy starring Gaten Matarazzo from Stranger Things,
All right.
um,
Yeah.
and also starring SNL's Sarah Sherman in kind of a bit role that was the main reason I watched this movie. And it was a really good time. I gave it 3 stars initially because it was just like really wild and out there and messy. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think like the jokes have landed for me, and I've really liked the characters, and so I'm definitely not mad at it. It was a good time.
The name didn't ring a bell, but I did know that Gaten Matarazzo was in a movie, so I'll have to add this to the watch list. I enjoy him. He's funny.
Yeah, he's really good in this movie. He plays kind of the lovable asshole type character who can't get out of his own head, I think. And so where they end up taking that character across the film is he's, like crazy stoned, and then they get into this kind of fiasco trying to get downstairs to get pizza without getting caught. It's interesting where they take his character for sure.
Well, it doesn't seem as raved about as Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, but perhaps 2026 is the year of the internet comedy movie crossover.
It might be. It might be. I need to watch that movie. I
It's
feel
so
like I'm
good.
missing out.
It's so
But I
good.
haven't
Yep.
I haven't seen the series, so I don't want to.
I had neither. It's not going to matter. It really won't. I think it's only an ad. It's not a like though there might be other jokes that you would get, but it's so for the first time ever I'm ranking my watches for the year as I go on Letterboxd
Mhm.
on a list. It's at number 1, and I think I've seen 8 2026 releases so far. It could very well still be number 1 at the end of the year. It was that good. So I
Wow.
think don't let that stop you. I think they announced a Blu-ray for it. I kind of wish that A24 would do a real kind of balls out release for this, maybe with stuff from the show or the web series also. But it seems like there hasn't been a release announcement from them yet. But it's got so much buzz. I hope they would do something for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really the barrier for entry for me was wanting to watch the TV series and the web series, which it doesn't seem to really be freely available. But I guess knowing I don't need to do that makes it a bit better, so I might check it out.
Yeah, yeah. Get on it. You won't regret it.
Do you see anything else this week, or should we move on to our next segment?
I think we can move right along.
All right. So, in past episodes, this is where we would typically discuss new release announcements from the various physical media labels out there. We're still going to do that, but we're trying something a little bit different. We're going to each bring a couple of specific picks to the table of upcoming physical media releases that we want to talk about rather than just listing like 10 titles in a row. So, we're going to try that out this episode, and we're also giving this segment its own little introduction. Here we go.
Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
It's like a warm bath hearing that.
Sounds of the past. All right. So, yeah, we're calling this segment Coming Soon to Own. So, Jesse, what is coming soon to own for you?
Well, literally coming soon because I did pre-order a few of these. So we did have the Vinegar Syndrome titles were announced at the beginning. I think the day after we recorded last. So there's always
Yep.
a boatload of things to talk about and consider when those come out. So the big one for me from Vinegar Syndrome proper is this box set of Eurocrime Rarities, Volume 1. They're signposting that there will be more, so prepare yourself to potentially get into another hole of wanting more of these if you like them. And so these are sort of in the vein of what Radiance has really been kind of staking their claim to with the Poliziotesco films. So these like 1970s gritty Italian exploitation films where there's like dirty cops and they're going after mob guys and stuff. But what instantly caught my eye, well, there's like Tony Stella artwork on the box set, which is just, for collectors know and love his work, but a Tony Stella drawing of the one and only Franco Nero holding a huge pistol. So I saw that. I'm like, I want that. I need to have that.
Yep.
So I haven't gone deep. I have one of the Radiance sets, the films, sort of in this vein. But knowing that there's going to be one with Franco in it, I have to check it out. So I'm definitely interested in that. I haven't bid on it yet because with the Vinegar Syndrome proper titles, they give you the counter. There's still 2,000 of those left, so those will be around for a while. So I might wait for a sale. Since this is a box set, it's a little pricier. But
yeah, I have an Arrow box set of Eurocrime films, I think, that I got when they were doing their box set sale.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of those too. So every label, there's so many of these, whether it's the spaghetti western stuff or the kung fu films, the giallos. So every label kind of gets to really take their pick of the ones they want to go for, especially once they see it's becoming a trend amongst collectors. But then on the partner label side, this is where I always kind of look closely. I like to see what's available because a lot of these partner label releases, they're much smaller runs, and some people just bite on them because they know the partner label and they know that they like the curation, which is kind of where I'm at with a lot of these labels. Mm-hmm. And the print runs can go out really fast, which was the case certainly for the slipcover stuff. But some of these are just out and gone forever now, including House of Dreams from Bleeding Skull, which I believe you picked up also.
Yes, yeah, I did.
Yeah, so it says existing outside the boundaries of reality, House of Dreams is a lost chapter of mid-century avant-garde horror, and they sort of drop a few different watchwords for me, at least, like Carnival of Souls, like anything that sort of is being compared to Carnival of Souls, I'm instantly interested in. And there were only, I think, 15 of the standard editions left when I got that, and now that's gone. And in addition to the film, which looks really interesting, I think it was shot on 16 millimeter or something like that. But it also includes a triple feature that's sort of like a VHS mixtape of this movie along with Meshes of the Afternoon and Carnival of Souls. That includes like commercials from the period. So that just sounds, I mean, that's an extra 2 hours of stuff, or hour plus of stuff right there. So that was something I wanted to pick up and did.
Yeah. Do you think your first time watching House of Dreams is going to be by itself or as part of the triple feature?
Probably by itself. We'll see. 3 hours of unbroken time can be a long, kind of a big ask for me to find where I won't fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I think Meshes of the Afternoon is pretty short, isn't it?
Isn't it like 40-something minutes?
Oh no, it's only 15 minutes long. So I've never seen it before. So maybe I will. Oh. That's something I should have seen by now anyway. So maybe I will do it that way, at least to catch those two. I've seen Carnival of Souls before, which I have the criterion of that. I love that. But I'm definitely interested in seeing. So maybe I'll do that. I'll watch the VHS mixtape version with the commercials for at least the two that I haven't seen, and that would be a delightful and strange evening.
Yeah, for sure.
Elsewhere from the partner labels, Kim Stim, which I think is one of their newer partners, is releasing one of Jan Svankmeyer's films, Faust. So this is, so Jan Svankmajer is this, he might still be alive. I think he's still alive. But he's a Czech filmmaker who was just this visionary stop motion director. Have you seen Alice? Have you seen his Alice in Wonderland film?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Man, that's the only one I've seen, but it's really incredible. It's very sort of surreal and like kind of disturbing. puppets and things used like that are mixing sort of like these very strange looking animals. Like so for Alice in Wonderland, like the rabbit is this like really kind of terrifying looking rabbit with its teeth pulled back. There's a GIF from that I like to use in the Discord and elsewhere. That's this strange looking puppet stropping a razor back and forth that you may have seen. That's a Jan Svankmajer animation, I believe. So if he's putting out I didn't know he'd made a Faust film. There aren't too many of. I've only seen Alice, but he did a lot of shorts and stuff, and he's somebody who I've kind of been wishing would get a bigger get some more attention from some of the boutique labels. Like it just seems like it would be a real great fit for like a Deaf Crocodile with all the interesting animation stuff they do. So that was a pickup that I had to make. And then finally, Magnolia Pictures is putting out a movie called Boarding Gate, which is an Olivier Assayas sort of erotic thriller looking film from the 90s starring Michael Madsen and Asia Argento, which is just kind of right up the alley for me. What about you, Josh? What are you excited about in the months coming?
First up, I know we both saw that Transmission actually did a double release announcement. And if they're going to start releasing 2 at a time, it's going to be a little dangerous. But But Transmission, we've talked about here at length before. They did Night of the Juggler, which was one of our previous episodes. They announced 2 things. The one I'm most interested in is the collection called 2 Boxes, which is a collection of films released in Spain that kind of tangentially have to do with boxes. So the description for this first one is after a man enters a telephone box, he finds himself unable to leave and at the mercy of fascinated locals while growing increasingly desperate to escape. And then the second one is about a suburban man's dream of owning his own TV becoming a dangerous obsession. So this is not the direction that I thought Transmission was going to go, reaching into 70s Spain, but I am extremely intrigued. I love the box art on this. These films are both Blu-ray, La Cabina and El Televisor. So definitely going to be picking this one up. They're television films, actually. So not sure if these ever had any kind of theatrical release or any kind of release at all outside of Spain. So definitely looking forward to that. And then we've got 4K of Vampire's Kiss, which we talked about, that was rumored last episode. It's definitely happening from Transmission, and these are both coming in July, so I'm at least picking up the 2 boxes, but I'll probably pick up Vampire's Kiss as well, just for completion's sake. I haven't seen it, so I don't really know what to expect there.
Yeah, I think that it's a much memed film, and one that's been on my list for a while, and it was until recently was pretty hard to find. I think at least on any kind of a high definition release. I think just last year or the year before it got one from, I think it was Kino. I forget who put it out, but I'm glad I didn't bite on that because of course Transmission's release just looks incredible. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So the 2 boxes set seems to be just kind of like a standard Blu-ray with a slipcover, kind of similar to their release of special effects. And then the Vampire's Kiss one seems to be getting the full box set treatment with the book and all that good stuff. And then kind of stemming off of Transmission, their, what do we call this? Like family, their father label, mother label? I don't know.
Mothership? Yeah.
Yeah, the Mothership. Radiance is putting out a couple of new titles in July as well. The one I'm most interested in is being billed as a sexy metaphysical giallo, so that's catnip for me, obviously. This is called The Double, starring Jean Sorel. This is about a man who is shot in an underground parking garage, and his life flashes before his eyes. And through flashbacks, we learn about his life and what led to that moment. This is a 4K restoration. It's being released on Blu-ray, and it's intriguing to me simply because it is a giallo, and I'm making it my life's goal to see as many of those as I can.
You won't run out, I don't think, anytime soon.
No, exactly. Yeah. But this is one I've never heard of. Obviously, with Radiance, it's packed with interviews, commentaries, and booklet with new writing and more. The cover art is really cool. It's got Jean Sorel kind of in this, classic 70s turtleneck and jacket look, and 2 women with white flowing robes are reaching out to him. So I'm very interested to pick this up and see what it's all about. If it really lives up to the description that they're giving it as a sexy metaphysical giallo.
When I saw the cover art for this, and before I knew anything about it, I thought that was James Garner. So I thought, like, oh, Radiance is putting out a James Garner movie, and why do these women worshiping James Garner? But it is not James Garner. Maybe sometime in the future they'll put out some Garner.
Yeah,
But
that's
no,
really
this looks
good.
good. I mean, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. And then the last one I wanted to shout out here comes from the Warner Archive collection. I've basically maxed out my shelf space for Warner Archive at this point, but I will make an exception for this one. It's Robert Benton's The Late Show from 1977. This is getting a Blu-ray release from Warner Archive. This stars Art Carney and Lily Tomlin. Art Carney plays a gumshoe, kind of past his prime. In Los Angeles. He's seeking to avenge the killing of one of his friends, who was another detective, and Lily Tomlin ends up kind of tagging along for the investigation. It's just a lot of fun. It's very laid back. It's a part of the old man private eye canon that I feel like a lot of TV shows, like prestige TV shows lately, are trying to kind of bite into. And this one just does it really well. It's 70s Los Angeles, you know? Who wouldn't want to look at that?
Yeah, I actually watched The Late Show because Robert Benton just died last year, so I think must have been highlighted on one of the other pods I listened to. And yeah, I had a great time with it. I love Lily Tomlin. I grew up watching her. The Incredible Shrinking Woman was a movie that was on TV all the time with Lily Tomlin. So I actually saw her live during she did a one woman show back in the early 2010s that I saw near here, and she's just still sharp, still so great, so funny. So I watched that, and The Late Show, that is, and had a great time. And Art Carney, someone who I would watch, like, episodes of The Honeymooners would be on late. It was either Nick at Night or some other, or maybe even like the Disney Channel or something like that. So I sort of strange for someone even my age to have grown up knowing who Art Carney was in one context. He did a lot of different things, and it was really neat to see him in the sort of hard bitten gumshoe type mode.
Yeah. The only thing I'm realizing now, the first time I had ever seen Art Carney was his cameo in The Muppets Take Manhattan, which I watched dozens of times as a kid. So it's weird to know someone from one appearance and then see them in other things, and that's just a really funny example.
Nice.
But yeah, that's all I got for coming soon to own. I hope to own all of those that we just discussed, but we'll see.
One other thing I will mention, which is not a release, but a new sublabel that is on the horizon that was just announced. So Kayla Janice, which is a name that might be known to some of the collectors out there, she works for Severin. She's one of their kind of like acquisitions chiefs. She's just one of the best curators out there. They are giving her her own sublabel, sort of like an outgrowth of a publishing company that she sort of runs called Spectacular Optical, but she's actually going to she's going to move that venture into film distribution, both theatrically but also for home release via Severin. Kayla Janice, most notably to me, has been responsible over at Severin for the All the Haunts Be Ours series, which is they've done 2 installments of that. These just sort of monumental box sets collecting folk horror from around the world. Kind of the first one was focused mostly on Europe, but the second one like expanded to Asia, and she curated those and did lots of writing for it, and also directed a documentary on folk horror that was included in the first release, Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched. She also put out this seminal book, the House of Psychotic Women, that focuses on films of women kind of losing their minds or being told that they're losing their minds throughout, like from the 60s through the 80s and beyond. Mm-hmm. And there have been a couple of Severin box sets that have accompanied that book. So to see her get her own sublabel, it kind of feels like it might be in the vein of a Radiance or even Cinematograph, with, you know, Justin Liberty getting his own little playground over at Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see what she'll get to do with this label. And it sounds like it says it will focus on music and counterculture, experimental films, landscape and design, and there's a few titles that are lined up already for them to release. Stuff I've never even heard of, but that sounds fascinating. So that's definitely going to be one to watch in the months to come.
Yeah. In the press release announcing Spectacular Optical, they mentioned that they're releasing a 4K restoration of the film Melody, which stars Mark Lester from the musical Oliver, a favorite of mine. But This is a puppy love story that inspired Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom, featuring songs by the Bee Gees. And it marks the film's first official release in North America in nearly 50 years. This looks really interesting, and if this is like kind of the template for films they're going to be putting out in the future, I'm extremely interested to see where they go.
Yeah, yeah, and Severin's presentation is great, so you know it's going to look good. So yeah, exciting. Well, and if that's it, Josh, should we move on to some heavier, darker Stranger Things?
Absolutely. We can move on now to our feature presentation, which has now received its own bumper as well.
And now, our feature presentation.
I'm going to love hearing that every week. All right.
All right, Josh, so how about you tell us what Tetsuo the Iron Man and Tetsuo II Body Hammer are about, if you can. I'm excited to see you try this.
Yeah, I've made my own notes in the document, supplemented by Wikipedia and what I could remember. So here we go. All right. Tetsuo and Tetsuo II, both directed by Shinya Tsukamoto. In the first film, after causing a hit and run, a Japanese salaryman finds parts of his body turning into pieces of metal while he is being haunted by visions, or are they, of crazed and sexual acts involving metal. As his body continues to be consumed, he encounters the victim of the hit and run, a metal fetishist who is also becoming a metal-human hybrid, who promises the salaryman a new world of metal. This all plays out in black and white, in between hazy memories from the guy who was hit from the hit and run, I think. Those are shot on videotape, along with grotesque transformation sequences made with stop motion effects and lots of sped up cinematography and some great practical gore. So the story of the first film does not continue in the second film, though it features a similar cast and it deals with many of the same themes. This time, Tsukamoto utilizes color instead of black and white, and he clearly has a much bigger budget. And in this one, he tells the story of another Japanese salaryman who finds his body transforming into a metallic weapon. But this time, it happens when he experiences rage. So originally, that rage was driven by the kidnapping of his son by a gang of violent thugs. But then the man accidentally kills his son during one of his transformations, and then he's kidnapped by a cult of skinheads whose bodies are given the power to transform into metallic weapons by a deranged man with a mysterious connection to the salaryman, and things are revealed from there. And yeah, that's about as good as I can do for Tetsuo and Tetsuo II. So there you have it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
This is going to be an extremely interesting conversation, I think, and I'm wondering if I am gonna be able to be coherent about these. I feel like I've said that before, but this time I actually mean it.
Yeah, especially with the first Tetsuo. I too had to resort to Wikipedia to try to piece together the story, but I didn't. I actually don't really care what the story is. It was more just to understand the connection between a little bit more between the fetishist and the salaryman, as they're called, because so much happens between the opening sequence where you see sort of the inciting incident, and when that guy pops up again later, I wanted to understand more. Like, oh, what was going on there? Because even though it's 67 minutes, I mean, there's so much sensory overload.
Yes.
In that first film that it's easy to forget what happened even just like 10 or 20 minutes earlier. So I picked up the Blu-ray box from Arrow some years ago and watched the first one as part of one of Scarecrow's psychotronic challenges around Halloween. The prompt was artificial limbs, robot arms, wooden legs, or even a transplanted thing, whatever grabs you. And so this was just, Tetsuo is just the perfect thing that fits the bill for that. And I'd never seen anything like it because, frankly, I don't think there's anything like that first movie.
I agree. I hadn't seen these before, but I did pick up the Arrow box set on someone's recommendation, I think, in the Discord. There was a sale at Arrow, and I was like, is this interesting? Should I pick this up and include it in my collection? And I got a resounding yes from several people. So I picked it up, and I haven't watched any of the films from this box set so far. These are the first two that I've seen, and hadn't seen anything that Tsukamoto has done prior to this. And if the rest of his movies are like this, I think I'm going to enjoy them, but I'll need to make sure I'm in the right mindset first.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, the only other one I've seen is Haruko the Goblin, which he made between these two, and is definitely a little more. There's more to grab onto from a story perspective, but it still has the wild inventiveness of the practical filmmaking with stop motion stuff and animation and things. But yeah, the first Tetsuo especially is a heavy lift if you've never seen any of his movies. But I don't know. For me, I really dig it. It's so strange and so kind of shocking and upsetting. But I also feel like what it lacks in plot, it really delivers on theme. If you're willing to kind of sit with it and dig into it and what it means, I don't think it's just he's not putting stuff up there just to shock and to disturb. I do think there's a lot going on. You get these scenes of some dilapidated neighborhood in a Japanese city. I don't think they ever tell you where it is, but he definitely seems to be the salaryman. He's both shocked, disturbed, but also infatuated with what's happening to his body. Did you get that sense? Like, it wasn't purely that he was frightened or or upset that these really disturbing things were happening to him.
Yeah, it's almost like he was weirdly accepting of it at some point. Like, this is a little bit further in the film, although the film itself is pretty short. But after he starts having the nightmares and then he wakes up and the transformation is actually happening and he's got now like a drill for a penis and he's trying to hide himself away from his girlfriend and eventually decides he's just not going to hide anymore and goes to attack her. And I think he literally says, like, fuck it. And so I read that as him being like, the changes started out disturbing him, and then he was like, I have to accept it. Doesn't mean he should have acted the way he did, but
No.
Yeah, that's the sense that I got from it. But I'm interested to hear you talk a little bit more about what you perceive to be the theme, especially of the first movie, because I was definitely getting the sense as I was watching it, the first one specifically, that it was starting to border on just a lot of things being thrown at the screen. And so maybe there was some thematic stuff that I might have missed.
Well, it opens in the fetishist's, what I think is the fetishist's house, when it's just, oh man, it's one of the grisliest things in the movie, is the first thing where he is sort of has this, it's almost like a piece of rebar or something like that he inserts into a wound in his thigh, and it just looks so real. Him putting this metal into his thigh, it looks painful. It sounds like but then he also he rubs some of it against his teeth, and it's just the idea of like that metal on your teeth, really grating. But in his house or his apartment, you see he has these cutouts of pictures of runners, like Olympic runners or marathon runners or something. So it sort of opens with these images of the perfect human form doing incredible things. So, and that's what this guy who is putting metal into his body has up on his wall. So I took it to be this sort of story about trying to optimize the body in some way, but perhaps either you think you can't do it on your own, or you think we've reached sort of the limits of what the flesh can do, and we've become enamored with all these machines that we have. Sort of like, wouldn't the fusion of these two things make the perfect unit in some way? And that's what these guys are trying to do, or trying to achieve, at least maybe the fetishist. And then whatever's happening with the salaryman, I'm not entirely sure, but he kind of seems to be along the same path. And certainly by the end, they've both come to the conclusion that the new world will be better if it is fused and imbued with metal. So that I found that to be very interesting, especially, again, I mean, we sort of have talked about, I'm no expert on Japanese history or Japanese culture, but just thinking about Japan in the late 80s, a heavily industrialized nation that had been kind of transformed by the factories and mechanization and whatnot. So that it seems like a theme that could be there.
Yeah,
and that might have been on people's minds.
Yeah, and also like what we choose to do with the machines that kind of dominate our society.
Yes.
Like, these machines do exist to help us, but do we choose to use them to act, monstrously? I think there's some of that in the first one for sure, and definitely in the second. film. So yeah, I think maybe a second viewing of this would benefit me because I didn't dislike it at all. I thought that craft-wise, the movie's just fantastic. There's always something interesting to watch. There's always some effect happening on screen that you're like, how did they do this? Especially knowing that like this was a extremely low budgeted film. Like a lot of the cast didn't love working on it and it seemed to have a bit of a troubled production. But from that standpoint, definitely really, really enjoyed it. But I did start to wonder maybe about halfway through, like, is this anything more than just a lot of really cool images? I definitely hear what you're saying, though, about the themes, and that's why I'm like, I probably need to watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, it even really kind of, it struck me this time around almost like a Godzilla for sort of the next wave of filmmakers, because by the end you have him sort of hulking around almost like a kaiju-like beast. And even though, Godzilla is kind of more like nuclear atrocities committed upon Japan and the consequences, the falling out of that, but then you sort of are left with, we've got this new technology, this new energy. What are we going to do with it? Is it going to come to help us, as it kind of does in the later movies, where Godzilla is like, a friend to the Japanese people? Mm-hmm. But yeah, similarly, like we've got all this metal, we've got these machines. Is it going to optimize us? Which, I mean, I don't know. We're kind of there with software now, right? We're using AI now as an extension of our brains. What's that going to do?
Yeah, true.
So I found it to be a richer viewing this time, knowing some of what was going to come, even though I'd only seen it once, and it was still all just as shocking on a second watch. But I kind of knew some of what to expect, so I felt like I had a little bit more space to think about what's he doing here, because I don't think it's just random. I think he's got some ideas knocking around inside.
He's also he does some pretty funny things with the way the camera moves, and also like juxtaposing things that are on screen. Like there's a part of the film that may or may not be like a vision or a nightmare, where the main character is like getting like sodomized by his girlfriend, and there's a no parking sign.
Yes, I wrote about that too. No parking. Yes.
Yeah,
like, it was so funny.
That is really funny, and totally unexpected. And so there are moments like that throughout both of these films that really did make it fun to watch. And yeah, there's just, I feel like there are so many little bits and pieces in this movie that I want to talk about, because there are like filmmaking moments that I thought were really great, or like effects that I don't know how they did.
It's incredible. I mean, just it looked, I can understand. Wasn't able to watch any of the visual essay that was in there, and I don't know too much about how it was made, but I mean, so much of it looks like it was so uncomfortable. It all looks so real. Like the metal that is on this guy's body, especially in the first one. I mean, you just think of, if they were making this movie now, it would be some digital pile of garbage grafted onto his body or something, Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. I think the most exciting part of this movie to me is this really harrowing chase sequence that happens in one of the beginning scenes of the film, where the main character is at a train station, and a passenger he sits next to sees like a mechanical body part on the ground, and like goes to poke it with like a pencil or something, and gets infected with whatever mechanical body virus is going on there, and chases him through the train station, through alleys, back alleyways and things like that. It's extremely harrowing. Not knowing what to expect, it was really creepy, shot with a really fast pace, kind of chaotic handheld style, very like zombie movie-esque, especially when he like kind of traps himself inside of a fence and she's trying to get at him. I thought that was just a really fantastic scene and one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of sped up camera effect that you see in a lot of the latter day fast zombie pictures, and there's even like a double dolly shot toward the end, when they're moving toward, when he's like he becomes the big metal monster, and his body's kind of fused with the fetishists. It's like the camera's on behind them, and they're moving through the street. Yeah, really, really amazing. Yeah, just the gritty black and white. It's very strikingly shot, and like kind of puts you on edge just to look at it.
Yeah.
And just like how gross the inside of that apartment. I think that might have been an apartment that belonged to one of the actors that they really jacked up in the course of filming this thing. What did you make of the second one?
I like the second film quite a bit more than the first one. I don't know if it was some combination of maybe more of the semblance of a narrative being there, maybe more action, maybe a bit more time to like flesh things out a bit more. But yeah, the second one, I spent a lot of time trying to catch like similarities between the first and the second films, and like seeing what Tsukamoto was able to build on in the second film, kind of in a similar way to like when you watch the first two Evil Dead movies. It's like the first one, The Evil Dead, is the proof of concept with tiny budget, and then the second one is not necessarily a redo, but I mean basically, like thematically it is, with a bigger budget, bigger swings, more crazy effects and things like that. Yeah, Tetsuo 1 and 2 are definitely analogous in my mind to Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, that's the same comp in my Letterboxd review from the second one. Though I feel like on second watch, there's still definitely some of that in terms of like the scope and that proof of concept, but it does feel more like this is like almost like a second installment in an anthology about, got people who are infected and become metal or other things. Because the first one is kind of this, just almost like a nightmare come to life. But the second one is almost more of like a revenge story with a plot.
Yeah.
And then strange things happen along the way. Problematize that simplification, I guess. But yeah, there's like a cast of supporting characters with sort of the evil cult or whatever it is that's trying to make a metallic superhuman weapon, but they sort of don't understand like his past and how he'll be able to basically overcome them using his will and his rage.
And the reason that they pick him on the surface, obviously later on we find out the connection between the salaryman and the main guy in the cult, but the first reason that they mention that they're using him is because he has the will to kill, and that's what counts for making this work. And we definitely see that he has that will to kill early on, because the members of the cult kidnap his son, and the first time this occurs, he's like too weak to really do anything about it. Obviously they chase the kidnappers and eventually get the kid back, but he's, extremely out of breath. He falls behind in the chase, and, he has that rage inside him, so he's driven to, like, exercise and, take matters into his own hands. And then, the second time his son is kidnapped, that's when the rage really kind of explodes out of him and transformation begins to happen, because he has that will to kill, which kind of goes neatly with one of the themes that we had mentioned in the first film, which is like, we have these machines, how are we going to use them? So there's definitely that aspect kind of blown up a bit bigger in this film.
Yeah, and you definitely get some similarities, even though the salaryman's girlfriend in the first movie comes to a very tragic end. By the end of the second film, his wife, she's been transformed by their experience also, not physically, but you see her like kind of riding along, like on top of him essentially, when he's become this literal war machine. And they kind of have this, I had forgotten about this, but they have this sort of fascinating, almost dream sequence at the very end where they're sort of looking out at the city. He's back to his normal self. Their son is with them, but the city's kind of been decimated by something, presumably maybe by by the Iron Man once he's gone out and wreaked havoc. But they say, I forget what they say, but they something it's like, oh, it's so pleasant or something like that. But presumably it's another one of these dream sequences that sort of is trying to tell you the headspace that they're in at the end. But even though she's sort of like watched him blow their son away, she's by his side, even though he's now a metal war monster.
Yeah. We should say that the salaryman in both films is played by Tomorowo Taguchi, who I have down in my notes as like being one of the best movie screamers I've ever seen. When he has to scream in either of these movies, it is intense, like guttural, like hands down, at least the best like male presenting screamer I've seen on screen. He could be a scream king easily.
Yeah, and I mean, just the physical performances in the first one especially are really, like, they were like 110% committed, both with the screams, but also just their facial reactions to all these things that were happening. I should get her name here because she was so good. Kei Fujiwara, who plays his girlfriend, the girlfriend in the first film, like just the stuff she does with her face, especially in the dream sequences where she's violating him, is just really, just genuinely frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing stuff. I was going to say, and the first one really felt to me as kind of like, has been said of, I forget, maybe it was one of the other movies we watched that was supposed to be like this, but it really did feel like an anime or a manga that had come to life. Like some of the stuff they did, even with like the voice performances, but certainly with the transformations are things you would only expect to see. You wouldn't expect to see anyone try to do that with practical, like live action stuff, but they did, and they really nailed it.
Yeah, especially with the reveal in the first movie when the girlfriend is... It's funny because she's saying, like, you know, nothing can scare me or nothing shocks me.
Yes.
And I'm just like, lady, just wait. And, like, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, then he kind of comes, you know, roaring out of the bathroom having been transformed, and it definitely feels like something that you would see in an anime. I definitely get your point there. We kind of mentioned this briefly, but yeah, the inciting incident of the second film is that the salaryman quite literally accidentally blows his own son away with the metal like gun he has in his arm or whatever, like bazooka type thing. When that happens, you see the guy who was holding the kid up just kind of like holding these two little like rubber arms that have been broken off at the wrists.
Yeah,
and
it's funny but also shocking.
Yes, yeah. That's a perfect like encapsulation of these two movies. It's like the things you're seeing are like incredibly shocking, but also could be viewed through with like a sense of humor. Like this is a cult movie, you know, or these are cult movies, and you know they're meant to be enjoyed. And even if you can kind of see maybe like the seams of the production, or maybe know that there were certain parts of the production that were maybe hindered by budget or whatever, the craft is here, and it's so much fun to enjoy, even if you can kind of maybe, you know, get to smile or wink at it a little bit, like, oh, that's kind of goofy.
Yeah, no, they definitely leveled up considerably for the second one. Just the set where all the, once he's abducted by the cult or whatever they are, that whole industrial space that they have with their post-apocalyptic gym where all the guys are working out. Yeah, really impressive. And just the scale of I mean, it's not even a costume, like the thing that they build around the salaryman as he like reaches his sort of final form as this tank monster. It was just really impressive.
Yeah, I think it looks, his final form, quote unquote, I think looks better in this second film than the first one. I thought the look in the first one was a little goofy. It
did look weird at the very end where he has the fetishist's head is popping out of the top and he's got the gun. That was maybe the least, that is the one thing that I would agree looks more goofy than shocking and impressive.
Yeah.
But one thing, another sort of Godzilla connection that struck me with the final form in the last one. So he sort of absorbs the essence of all of the cultists at the end.
Yes.
With these tubes.
Yeah.
and then when he's rolling down the street at the end, you see their faces like kind of like grafted on, like popping out of his armature or whatever, like his chassis that he's rolling down the street in. And it reminded me of the end of Shin Godzilla. You sort of see, you zoom in on like the carcass of Godzilla and you see all these like human bodies sort of crawling out of his, and it just was another thing that was like, I'm just seeing more Godzilla everywhere I look here. Even though it's only that's the only Godzilla movie I've ever seen them do that, but that's almost felt like maybe it wasn't a nod to Tetsuo, but it was a connection that I saw.
Yeah, I'm seeing that photo now, and you're definitely like right on the money with that. And it's stuff like that, something like that happens, I think, in The Thing too. And you know, there's part of one of the monsters in Stranger Things is kind of made up of human, like a conglomeration of human flesh or whatever. Or even like the monster at the end of The Substance. Those are all kind of images that flash through my mind seeing that final form, for sure.
For me, the first one especially is like sets a very high bar for anyone who's going to try body horror. Like you gotta see this, and if you can't approach the levels of disturbing that they're going for here, like maybe you shouldn't even try.
I found the stop motion animation in this to be frankly like really abrasive and disturbing, of how like fast all the pieces,
Yes.
the metal pieces move, and like it's just giving me like the willies, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, they're
Just
almost like worms at times, like the little
yeah.
thin pieces that sort of move around the screen. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I can only imagine how long that took to do, like to assemble all of those pieces together. Because I assume it's stop motion, animation photography, where you're moving
Yeah, it has
things
to
one
be.
frame
Yeah.
at a time,
Hmm.
basically. So like, yeah, the amount of time and effort that was put into that is insane to think about, and it definitely turned out well, because it's extremely disturbing to look at. But that kind of abrasive, like in your face filmmaking is present in both of these movies. And even when like characters are kind of undergoing a transformation and the camera zooms really fast, like down streets and things like that, you kind of get it kind of feels like you're watching someone be on cocaine or something. I think I wrote down in my notes, like, is this what cocaine feels like? But having them kind of like speeding down the street and watching that is really kind of like disorienting, and definitely kind of helps, with the atmosphere of the film, like the tone they're going for.
Yeah, it felt like the kind of thing you'd see in a lot of '90s kind of cutting edge music videos.
It reminded me a lot of the opening of, I think it's Lost Highway, right? Where it's just like the cars going really fast, but all you're seeing is the road passing. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, actually, looking back in my review of the first time I saw Tetsuo, I had seen Titan just a couple of days before. But you definitely get like shades of Cronenberg's Crash in this movie too, with that sort of fascination with the machine, and the sort of the sexuality of it, and even the way that at least initially his girlfriend is kind of like infatuated with the idea of these metal appendages, even though it goes horribly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely
'cause
felt like he was in conversation with some of what else was going on in the sort of avant-garde body horror space.
yeah, and what you say about the girlfriend in the first film is definitely true. I was trying to get in the first film like what the girlfriend's vibe was, because I also wasn't sure what was real and what was just
Yes.
kind of like a hallucination or part of the main guy's imagination or whatever. So it's definitely a toss up of like, is she infatuated with this? Is she scared of it? What's happening to her? What is she doing to him? And how much of this is real? It definitely took up a lot of my like brain space while I was watching this, for sure.
Did you check out any of the features on the disc?
I didn't have time, but I mean, what's on here is a couple of archival interviews with Tsukamoto, and then a visual essay called An Assault on the Senses, which I definitely need to check out, because it seems to go a bit more in depth on like the style of these two films. And then also included on the Blu-ray of the Tetsuo films is a short film called The Adventure of Denshu Kozo, which was shot prior to Tetsuo. But I haven't gotten to check that one out yet. Looks like it runs about 47 minutes, so I might be doing that here before too long.
Yeah, no. Similarly, I wasn't able to watch the new video essay, but I would like to go back and see. And yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in here that I have not seen yet in just the box, beyond the Solid Metal Nightmares box from Arrow. I know our Chuck from Bat and Spider has talked about Vital as one, I think, that he really enjoyed. That's a bit of a kind of a departure from some of his, maybe kind of more of like a psychological thriller than like a gross out, which is kind of what some kind of the stuff he's more known for. Like Tokyo Fist, I think, is also a pretty visceral watch. So yeah, I'm excited to explore more of these, and also hit that movie I mentioned earlier, Hiroku the Goblin. I'm hoping that somebody puts out a nice release of that too. That would be nice to have in here, but I don't know if at least any U.S. labels have put that one out, because that one's, I would say, is more pure fun. If you want something that's like his style but is more watchable and enjoyable in a conventional way, that's a really good one to check out.
Yeah, I'm adding it to the watch list right now. Do you have any other notes on these two movies? You can't see my notebook, but I was writing notes kind of frantically throughout the two films, and I've got like arrows pointing from one bullet to another, like, because I was trying to take notes in real time, so like when things get revealed as they were happening, it's like, oh, this connects to this, and this is what we were really seeing in this scene. I think I went a little overboard with that.
Yeah,
Because it
no,
really
this
doesn't matter. Like, the plot doesn't matter in these, really.
no, this time I think I had 6 or 7 notes and we had all of them, and this I was just kind of like, I just want to look at it, because otherwise it would be a real Chris Farley show. Like, wasn't it crazy when he stuck this piece of metal in his body? That would be like 90% of what my notes were, because it really is just like one wild thing after another that this guy either does or has done to him. So no,
Yeah.
I think that's all of it. Yeah, that's honestly, the first one is it for me. I like the second one. I love the first movie. It's just it's just one of those movies that's a reminder. There's so many ways to make a movie. It kind of makes you annoyed at what we get on a weekly basis, like at the theater. Like, there's so many ways to make a movie, guys. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many stories to tell, or themes to convey, or crazy things to do. So yeah, I don't know. The first Tetsuo is it's got to be one of my favorites, just for how bold it is and how it was made and how willing to disturb he was. Yeah.
I think we hit a lot of my notes already, at least from the first one. A big one for me was like just how uncomfortable that costume with all the prosthetics and stuff must have been.
Man.
Not really sure, especially with the spinning drill that he ends up getting at one point. That could not have been comfortable.
And I should acknowledge, as much as I tend to fetishize the practical, and you saying that it was like a lot of people didn't enjoy working on it, it does look uncomfortable, so I can understand why. You know, if you could do it with the computer, it can save people some discomfort. But I don't know, it pays off. It pays off on the screen. We have this amazing movie. So I thank the actors for their service under pounds of metal or plastic or whatever they made all that stuff out of.
Yes, we salute them. Couple of quotes here. The fetishist at the end says, "We can rust the world into the dust of the universe." What a line. He's spitting bars. Seriously.
Yeah, they talk about rust a lot, kind of in both movies, and that's another thing I could track the next time. Like, what is this? You know, what does this mean? What are they trying to do? If it means anything. But yeah,
because the members of the cult that get transformed into monsters that don't like have the innate power, I guess, they end up like rusting really easily. So that's one of the reasons why they kind of fall away and eventually get absorbed by the end of the film. There's an interesting Alien homage, I think, in the second film, where the mechanical gun kind of bursts out of the main character's chest when he's being experimented on. Thought that was interesting. In the second film, this is like just an interesting, I guess, decision they made, but it seems that the main character is able to morph back into his normal self.
Yes.
And kind of like put away, his mechanical gun arm and all of that. And in the first one, he progressively just gets more and more like metallized throughout the course of the film.
He's sort of like, I mean, literally kind of like the Hulk, in where it's connected to that rage. And by the end, like, just so much stuff has happened to him that it just bubbles over. And he just keeps,
it's just funny because
it's
funny because the evil doctor calls him a mild specimen at the beginning. So I'm like, what would it have been like with a more aggressive specimen than him?
Well, it seems like because they didn't know like his backstory, I guess, right? That was kind of, they
would have had to know, right? Yeah. Because they were.
I guess they.
Spoiler alert, I guess. But he and the fetishist in the second film are secretly brothers.
Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe the fetishist hadn't told the doctor or whatever.
That's true.
Oh, I also really love the main theme from the second one that we get at the beginning and throughout. I thought that went pretty hard.
Yeah, like it's like
it's almost like a Terminator type of little flourish.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the notes I have on these two films, other than just Tsukamoto really knows how to make nightmarish images. In the great Lynch tradition, obviously two totally different vibes, but they both give me the same kind of feeling, like they've mastered what a nightmare could feel like. And most people who try to capture that just ultimately fall really short, but Tsukamoto's definitely got it for sure.
Yeah. I'm excited to explore more of these, and the box is a keeper for sure. I think it's the first two movies are kind of a high bar to set, but I'm sure there's some other good stuff in here. So
I imagine this box will be a keeper, but obviously I'll have to check back in once I've seen the other 6 films in the box set. But yeah. As far as the Tetsuo films, I'm a fan. definitely want to watch at least the first one again to get a better sense of things. But yeah, really enjoyed both.
Great pick.
Well, that wraps up our discussion of Tetsuo the Iron Man and Tetsuo II Body Hammer, our first double feature pick on this show. I assume not the last, although, we can never tell one way or the other. These things are a mystery, even to us. But if you want to reach out to us with suggestions, thoughts on the films that we've covered, thoughts on physical media, announcements or releases in general, you can do so at blindbuyspod@gmail.com, and we'll read your thoughts here on the air. Nothing this week, though, so that means it is time to move right on to Jesse's pick for our next episode. All right, what are you thinking we should watch next time?
Well, we missed it in the month that was March, but I was thinking back on the types of movies that we've picked so far, and we have yet to pick anything directed by a woman. And March was Women's History Month. We missed it, but that doesn't mean we can't. We have to relegate such watches to that month. So
very true.
I have purchased and only watched one film from the monumental Criterion Agnes Varda, the complete films of Agnes Varda. So we are going to be watching next time Agnes Varda's 1977 film One Sings, the Other Doesn't.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, this is going to be good. I have only seen a couple of Varda films, but this one's been on my watch list for a while, so eager to get to it.
Yeah, I've only seen Cleo from 5 to 7, and that's like I adore that film. So I'm excited to get on the good path and check off some. I mean, she just has made so many movies that I know by reputation are wonderful. So I'm excited to dig into this box, because it's really one of the. I feel like they don't do it quite as much as they used to, but these director boxes that they give that are really kitted out with lots of writing, and with her you really get end to end. You get everything. It's really special. A special thing to have, so I'm excited to get into it with Agnes Varda.
Yeah, all right. You heard it here first, folks. Next week we're doing One Sings, the Other Doesn't, directed by Agnes Varda, and we will discuss that next time. All right, see you then.
Bye, everybody.